You want to support Roland Markie Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Markie Unfiltered. Support the Roland Markie Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMarkieUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, Dr. Cornel West has resigned from Harvard University due to a significant tenure battle. He also says his resignation is the effects of the school's, quote, intellectual and spiritual bankruptcy. He sent what he calls a candid letter of resignation to the dean of his college. This is what he wrote. I hope and pray you and your family are well. This summer is a scorcher. Here is my brief and candid letter of resignation. How sad it is to see our beloved Harvard Divinity School in such decline and decay. The disarray, first of all, that graphic, y'all, right there is way too small that we got on the air. I'm just letting y'all know, folks can't read that graphic on the air. But this is what he wrote in here. He said that, I hope and pray that I could still end my career with some semblance of intellectual intensity and personal respect. How wrong I was. With a few glorious and glaring exceptions, the shadow of Jim Crow was cast in its new glittering form expressed in the language of superficial diversity. All my courses were subsumed under Afro-American Religious Studies, including those on Existentialism, American democracy, and the conduct of life. No possible summer salary alongside the lowest increase possible every year. He laid out a number of other things in here. Dr. Cornel West joins us right now. Glad to have you back on the show, Doc.
Brother, it's always a blessing to see you. I like that shirt you're wearing, A Alpha Phi Alpha. I'm talking about Martin King Jr. I'm talking about John Hope Franklin. I'm talking about Donna Hathaway and Duke Ellington. But that's just a few of the brothers. Roland Martin, Clifton West, my father, Cornel West, myself. Good to see you, my brother.
Well, you know it. Knowing you on, that's why I went ahead and rocked the pinstripe black and gold today. Even got the matching pinstripe shorts, but it's all good.
You got the pinstripes working, no brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But I want to face my solidarity with Brother Harrison, though, Rydell Harrison. And I can't wait to hear this intergenerational dialogue between the one and only William Barber and the one and only Bree Newsom. Brother, you and your show have been a force for good, in the language of John Coltrane, year in and year out. And I salute you even before we get to my case. And that's very important, man. You're a long-distance runner. You in it because you're real, because you are a free black man, and because you love black people. That's the bottom line, man. That's a crucial bottom line. And that's what we need in these dim and decaying moments, man. That's what.
Well, I certainly appreciate it, and we're doing our best to give folks the enlightenment and the education on the issues. You wrote what is a candid letter. I call it a blistering letter, where you laid it out. But before we went to break, I talked about the issues that we're seeing in this country, not just with white conservatives, but also with white liberals as well.
That's exactly right, because anytime you keep track of the shadow of Jim Crow, you find that it's not just a conservative issue. Liberals have been contributors to the reinforcement of these glittering versions of Jim Crow. Why? Because white supremacy has an ideologically promiscuous character. It can lie with anybody, with any movement, with any political orientation. That's how deep white supremacy cuts, my brother.
And what folks have to realize is that when we talk about these institutions, when we talk about white supremacy, the operative word in white supremacy, in white liberal, white conservative, is white. What trips me out is sometimes folks don't want to be honest about this and challenging people on this issue. So somebody could call themselves allies. Somebody could put kente cloth on. They can show up at the Black History Month program, but in their actions, it really speaks to how they stand.
That's exactly right. And also, we acknowledge that a white brother like John Brown is much more over against white supremacy than a black brother like Clarence Thomas. Now, we love Clarence as a human being. He's beautifully black aesthetically, but ideologically and politically, he is a foe, he's an enemy. Now, I'm a Christian, I try to love all my foes and enemies, but that's a different issue. Politically, black people can contribute in a significant way to the reproduction of white supremacy. There are white brothers and sisters who fight over against white supremacy, the William Kunslers and the Ann Bradens and Rabbi Heschels. I mean, these are folks saying racism is Satanism. They're willing to die with Martin and with other black groups. So that when we talk about white supremacy, we're talking about actions, deeds, ways of being in the world, and people can choose to be over against it no matter what color they are, even though for every white brother who's John Brown, he got thousands of cousins who never got the memo. And we want to be honest about that. We don't want to be naive and think it because we've got some serious white brothers and sisters who are in solidarity with us, that somehow they are moving toward a majority. No, they are a slice. They are a prophetic slice of the white community. White supremacy generates levels of benefits that make it very, very difficult for large numbers of folk not to resist.
You also, again, were very critical of Harvard on the Palestinian issue. Explain.
Well, one is, the issue of the Israeli-Palestinian situation of Israeli domination and the occupation of precious Palestinian brothers and sisters is a taboo issue in a lot of different contexts that people don't want to be honest about it. They don't want to really believe or take seriously what I believe, which is a Palestinian baby has exactly the same value as a Jewish Israeli baby. That a Jewish baby has exactly the same value as a Palestinian baby or a white baby or a black baby or an indigenous baby or whatever. And if you're consistent in that way, then you must take a stand against all forms of occupation and domination, and therefore one will be in solidarity with Palestinian brothers and sisters. And to make that stand and to be honest about it and to be vocal and public about it can get you in a whole lot of trouble. People say, oh, West is anti-Semitic. West must be anti-Jewish. No, there's Palestinian occupation of Jewish brothers and sisters. I'm with my precious Jewish brothers and sisters. I come out of a moral and a spiritual tradition linked to the West Family Shiloh Baptist Church and Alpha Phi Alpha. We believe in universality, even though we rooted on the chocolate side of town. And we're concerned with human beings across the board, made in the image and likeness of God. And therefore, we look at the world through moral and spiritual lens that has strong political consequences. And that's why we're critical of politicians, no matter what color they are. We're critical of people who drop drones, no matter what color they are. We're critical of governments that promote militarism, no matter which continent they're from. These are moral and spiritual issues. And therefore, you're willing to get in trouble. You're willing to be misunderstood and misconstrued. But in the end, you and I know, brother, because I know you coming out of Jim Crow, Texas. And my mama came out of Jim Crow, Texas. Jim Crow, Texas produced some high-quality folk tied to morality and spirituality, telling the truth about suffering, no matter who they are. But we begin on the chocolate side of town. We begin with our mothers, our fathers, our cousins. We begin with black folk. But our love and our commitment to justice spills over to our indigenous peoples, our Spanish-speaking peoples, our poor whites and working-class whites, as well as a whole host of others in the Middle East, Africa, Haiti, Guatemala, Argentina. That's what it is to accent the best of a great people, and that's black people. We ain't never, ever found a people in the modern world who have to deal with 400 years of hatred and keep dishing out love warriors and freedom fighters and wounded healers and joy spreaders. That's who we are, black people at our best. And we intend to hold up that bloodstained banner and be faithful unto death.
I'm going to bring in my panel now for questions. I'm going to start with one of your academic peers, Dr. Niambe Carter, Howard University Political Science Department. Dr. Carter, your question for Dr. Cornel West.
Well, I don't know that I would say peer necessarily. I mean, we're talking about, an intellectual icon here.
He a professor, you a professor,
yes,
he your peer.
Okay. Well, I will say, Dr. West, thank you for joining us. And I do have a quick question. Why go back to Harvard after you left them quite, spectacularly before? And why take a non-tenured offer? Was there some other conversation that was happening that was not honored? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. And you are a distinguished professor at a great institution. Now, we want to be
Absolutely.
very honest about that. Indeed. But all these universities, as you know, tend to be market-driven. They tend to be fearful of the unionization of their professors and others, and they have to be tied to donors and benefactors. So we all want to be realistic about universities across the board in the capitalist civilization. But I returned to Harvard because I was trying to create a certain kind of arc in my career that Brother Skip Gates and others, and Skip Gates and I, we got disagreements, but I love my brother. He's my friend. And he and Evelyn Higginbotham and others invited me back. And I said, well, we had such a good time before. Let me end up there. And so when they made the offer, I had assumed that over time I would be able to move back into a position that was in some sense commensurate with what I left. But I just thank God. And as you know, this is not really about me. This is about people, especially black folk in workplaces and colleges and universities all around the country who are not respected as they ought, who are too often devalued and dismissed, you see. And they get mistreated. And sometimes they got to go silently into the night, but I'm not going silently into the night. And I'm not speaking on behalf of myself. I'm just speaking on behalf of truth and justice for all professors, especially black professors who come out of a great black intellectual, musical, cultural, spiritual tradition. And we're trying to keep that tradition alive no matter where we are, community colleges, universities, and so forth. And I must say that in many ways, some of my greatest moments have been as a teacher in a historically black institution called prisons, that I've been blessed to teach in prisons now for 44 years, and to be pushed by those brothers, to be unsettled by those brothers, to be in dialogue with those brothers. We read Plato, Du Bois, we read St. Augustine, Toni Morrison, we read Samuel Beckett, and we listen to Curtis Mayfield, because I don't go anywhere without listening to Curtis Mayfield in the classroom. Why? Because he's a genius. Because he's talking about the truth, and the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. Because he always brings the tradition with him, that love supreme that his fellow musician John Coltrane was playing about. See, that's the tradition that we need to keep alive in these moments of spiritual decay and moral decrepitude.
Thank you.
Faraji Muhammad, your question for Dr. Cornel West.
Dr. West, it is certainly an honor and a privilege to have the time to chat with you for a moment. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. We're really seeing we're in a unique time when
Yes.
black scholarship is really under attack, and you spoke a little bit about this. Should there be a mass movement of black intellectuals and scholars like yourself and others to move away from predominantly white institutions, PWIs, and take that brilliance to HBCUs to strengthen and add value to those learning institutions?
Ooh, wonderful question, and I salute you, my young brother, because I'm telling you, one of the reasons why I exist as an OG is to make sure this rich tradition flows through the young brothers and sisters. Of course, the professor's a young sister, too, but you look even younger than her, but we won't get into that right now. But the point is this, the question is this, that we need to go in places where we are respected and where we can be empowered. You see, now I don't believe that every black institution of higher learning is respecting black folk the way they are. They got to earn it. We know that they've produced some of the most magnificent figures, the Toni Morrisons and we can go on to the Stokely Carmichaels and others. But just because an institution is a black institution doesn't necessarily mean that they are specializing in the empowerment of black folk, because sometimes white supremacist ideologies operating in those black contexts. So I think, yes, I believe you're right. We need to go to places where we can empower one another no matter what. There's no doubt about that. And that includes the Howards and the Spellmans. My dear sister Ruth Simmons, towering leader, Prairie View. I was glad to be there just a couple of years ago.
I'm here in Baltimore. I was just saying, I'm here in Baltimore. So
you got the great Morgan State. You ain't lying with Peter Harvey. Peter
Okay.
Harvey is one of the finest legal minds in our time. He's a graduate of Morgan State, right? So dishing out high quality. But the question would be to make sure these are places that are welcoming and willing to embrace a whole host of different kinds of voices. There are some challenges in some of our great historic black institutions in terms of embracing a number of challenges, including some of the deeply leftist and Marxist ones. There have been times where black institutions have been very, very reluctant to bring in too many leftists. Why? Because they got people on their board of trustees that make it difficult for them to want to be too inclusive given the money flow. Now, this is not all black institutions, but what I'm saying is when you talk about the structural and institutional forms of black and white universities, you will find differences and you will find similarities. We haven't even got to talk about envy and resentment, which is a human thing, which is at work all the time. But the crucial thing is all black institutions at their best, make major contributions. And in that regard, I think the answer to your question is yes. Black institutions at their worst still create certain kinds of impediments and obstacles, even though it's just black folk. You see what I mean? So we can't just assume that just because you had a black institution that somehow you doing this thoroughly black empowerment thing. Individuals can be committed to black empowerment, but whether the black institutions are committed, that's a larger question.
Michael Emmo.
That requires a whole larger discourse. I mean, you got a brother like my dear brother Craig Carr. You know, he's got the wonderful Afrocentric network. I was just part of that recently with Sister Karen Hunter, and both of them superb. And I'm sure you talk to Brother Carr, Professor Carr, distinguished professor. He's got his critique of Howard. Even though he's there at Howard, he loves black people in the same way others at Howard love black people. But there's a conversation, a dialogue, and a debate that takes place within black institutions as well. And we've got to learn from them.
Michael Imhotep, your question.
Dr. Cornel West, this is Michael Imhotep from the African History Network show. How you doing?
Right, how you doing, my brother? Good to see you. Man.
All right. You just mentioned mutual friend, Dr. Greg Carr. So let me ask this question. Dr. Greg Carr, since you mentioned Afrocentrism and Afrocentric, if we go back to the early 1990s, there was a critique from Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr. as well as you regarding Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen and Dr. John Henrik Clarke. And they talked about this in Emerge magazine, the one with one of my teachers, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, on the cover. But there was a critique referring to them, I may not get the words exactly right, but as demagogues and pseudo-scholars, something to that effect. And I know you went on later to have a friendly debate with Dr. John Henrik Clarke as well after the NAACP summit around 1993. What was the critique in the early 1990s dealing with Afrocentrism, and do you still have that same critique today, or has it maybe evolved, or maybe you made some amends, or what have you?
Right. No, I appreciate that question, though, brother. It's a very important question. Well, one is that, you know, I said before that me and Brother Skip Gates are brothers and friends, but we don't speak the same language. See, I sat at the feet of John Henrik Clarke when he was head of Black Studies and Puerto Rican Studies at Hunter College every month for almost 4 years. As you know, the debate that we had at Ohio State, where Brother Carr was the mediator. He was the MC. I would never in a million years call the great John Henrik Clarke a pseudo-scholar. See, that's not my language. I would never in a million years call him a demagogue. That's not my language. I disagree because he's a black nationalist, he's a Pan-Africanist. I'm not a nationalist of any sort. I have great connections with black nationalists, but I'm not a nationalist of any sort. And therefore, I'm critical of any kind of talk of nation formation that doesn't talk about class and empire and patriarchy and homophobia and a lot of other things. But that doesn't mean that they're not my comrade. So that I'm glad I get a chance to clarify this, my brother. John Henrik Clarke is one of the great geniuses and giants of the 20th century, intellectually, politically, as Pan-Africanist, going all the way back to his Sunday school in Georgia, his formation, all the way back to his magnificent plays and writings and work with Malcolm X and so on. So the critique of Afrocentrism at that time, my brother, was, especially with Brother Leonard Jeffries. You know, Leonard Jeffries and I are brothers, that we've had public debates on and on and on. And his lovely wife, right there in New Jersey.
Right, Dr. Rosalind.
But the issue had to do was, what was the role of Jews in the slave trade? And that was the issue that got Brother Leonard in such deep trouble, because he made the claim that, one, you must keep track of the role of Jews in the slave trade. He's right about that. Jews did play a role in the slave trade. The Lopez family in Rhode Island, for example. But then the question became, what was the scope and the breadth of it? What was the scope and the breadth of it? And there we had serious dialogue. And I was right there with Brother Leonard, arguing, telling him, yes, the role was there, but it was not as extensive as he thought. But people said even to talk about Jews in the slave trade meant you were anti-Semitic, you were anti-Jewish. You said, no, that's just a way of not allowing black folk to be free enough to be critical of vicious Israeli occupation, not to be free enough to be in solidarity with Palestinian suffering. That's a moral and a spiritual issue again, you see? So we can't allow any of the critics to dampen our fire and not allow us to be free enough to think for ourselves. Now, Brother Leonard, Professor Jeffries was thinking for himself. We just happened to disagree. So we had public conversations about it. John Henry Clark came in to mediate because John Henry Clark, no more than both of us put together in terms of historical knowledge of the slave trade and the Arab trade, the Arab slave trade that he would lay out so well and so on. So in that sense, I do want to make a distinction between Brother Skip and myself. Now, Brother Ben, it is a different situation there.
Sure.
Because there, I think it was Brother Skip who was using the language about Brother Ben. I've known Brother Ben since 1970. He used to come to my classes when I was with Union Seminary with James Cone and the others. And we, again, had major intense debates. And people said, well, you know, he didn't have a huge university position there. No, he may not have been teaching at a college, but a college went through him. And so you take seriously what he has to say. And we had disagreements and our agreements in that sense. But I think the point you said that I'm trying to make here is that I don't believe in using the language of pseudo-scholars to great intellectual figures like a John Hope Franklin. I mean, like a John Henry Clark. John Henry Clark, who's like John Hope Franklin. Both of them giant.
Exactly. All right, thank you for that.
Dr. West, you talked about the arc of your career. You've been at Harvard, you've been at Union, and a number of other different places. But you spoke earlier about Dr. Ruth Simmons, who was doing some amazing things down at Prairie View A&M University. Would you go to an HBCU? And if you did, where do you want to go? If you had to pick 3 HBCUs that you would like to teach at, because you talk about, because I think it would be amazing for the students, for the faculty, for the staff, for the alumni, for someone of your scholarship to teach an HBCU. What three would be on your list?
That's a wonderful question. You know, for 20 years, I did a black college tour every spring when I was head of black studies at Princeton with Sister President down there, that we had an exchange program where we brought up students from Morehouse and Spelman to Princeton, and Princeton went down to Spelman and Morehouse. And if I had a choice, it would probably be Spelman #1. I won't go into all the other dimensions of that, because I've had Eddie Glaude, I've had Mark Jefferson, I've had Paul Taylor, but students coming out of Morehouse who work with me as graduate students. But it would be Spelman and Morehouse together if I had a choice. It would be Prairie View right outside of Houston. And probably Alabama State. I've had magnificent experiences with folk in Alabama State. Now, my challenge is that I'm a California brother who does like to live on the East Coast, way up around New York, Harlem, Brooklyn, and so on. So the closest would be Cheyney State. The closest would be Lincoln University. I've been to all of these places. And I must say, Howard, I love so deeply. I mean, Brother Professor Dr. Reverend Bernard Richardson has had me for 31 years to speak every spring at the Howard University Chapel, the Rankin Chapel. And so I have a very rich relationship with the students and faculty there every April for over 30 years. So those are part of my experiences that would lead me to highlight those 3, I think, my brother.
Okay, so at
the moment, I'm going to be right on the edge of Harlem, living on 110th Street at Union Theological Seminary, and as I move into my 70s, I still want to keep swinging, because it don't mean a thing, and if it ain't got that swing, and that swing, it's got that love and justice.
But I gotta press you. I know you really like that East Coast, but you named 3. So, and yes, although I'm a Texas A&M graduate, Prairie View is a part of the A&M system. So what you're saying is, if I made a call to Sister Dr. Ruth Simmons, and she's doing some amazing things, and if Dr. Ruth Simmons puts a hell of an offer on the table, could that pull you from the East Coast to come on down to Prairie View A&M University?
Well, brother, I got to ask folks to pray for me on that one, though, because the move from Harlem to outside of Houston is a move for a brother who's 68 years young.
I got you, but you had 3 on your list, and I'm just saying.
I was looking at it through the lens of my heart. I mean, I love ATL. I love A-Town, right? Would I move to A-Town with my precious son down there? I get a chance to spend time with him. That's magnificent. Would I move to Atlanta from 110th Street? I need folk to pray for me on that now. Just go down to Spelman and Morehouse. Because you're talking about family. You're talking about loved ones. You're not just, just plopping down. But my heart. And then Alabama State now. Oh, they got some good folk there as well. But what I'm saying is that we can be forces for good in whatever context we choose. And we must never downplay or devalue the richness and the magnificent contributions of our black brothers and sisters at historically black institutions of higher learning.
Okay, all right. So let me narrow this down. And I know I got my guest from Oklahoma. Y'all just hold on one second. So, all right. So let's say, you got Morgan State and Baltimore. That's 4.5 hours from 110th Street.
That's true.
Yeah. Everybody talk about Howard and the Mecca, okay? But you got Virginia Union, you got Virginia State, Norfolk State, you got Hampton. All right, so let's say, okay, so if I call our Alpha brother, who's the president of Morgan State,
yes,
and if Morgan State put something on the table, could they lure Dr. Cornel West to Baltimore?
Well, in the name of the genius Billie Holiday of Baltimore City, if I get a call from Morgan State, I'm going down to give a lecture, to be in dialogue, to learn and to present. Now, whether I stay for a year or 2 or 3, I'd have to have folk praying for me to check that out and see. But if I get a call, especially from my Alpha brothers, you know me, Brother Roland, I'm coming down.
Okay, so all right. So if David Wilson, if Brother David Wilson made that call, because see, I'm trying to get you to one of these HBCUs. So I'm trying to work this thing out.
Lord.
I'm trying to work this thing, because that ain't nothing but a phone call. In fact, I'm looking for his number right now. I was gonna call him on the air. So you see, Doc, you gotta understand that ain't nothing to me. That ain't a problem. So I'm just letting you know that's a phone call. But so there's a lot of HBCU folks watching. So how about that? I'm gonna do it this way. Okay, I'm gonna do it this way. If y'all are Morgan State graduates are fans, Prairie View graduate states are fans, Alabama State, and I'll throw in Morehouse Spelman. I want y'all to start an online social media campaign to see who the most folk can vote to get them to campus. So I'm telling you, Doc, because I believe you talk about the arc of your career. I believe that everybody talk about Ta-Nehisi Coates and Nicole Hannah-Jones coming to Howard. Folks, look, you've had Pulitzer. Dwayne Wickham has brought 4 Pulitzer Prize winners to the School of Journalism there as well. And I have said this. And people thought I was lying. I said, we build this show and this company that we're building, I said, if we build this thing to a $50 million a year company, I said, every year, we will create a School of Communications on an HBCU campus with a $3 to $5 million a year donation. And I believe there are several, at least 5 in different parts of the country. To me, that's the level of commitment that we need, because I think what has to happen is we have to be able to take the knowledge, take the expertise, and build it, because I believe we got to have 1,000 Roland Martins, 1,000 Cornel West, 1,000 Niambe Carters in order for us to move to the next generation. Because I keep thinking generationally, and that's my thing. I'm not thinking singular because we all have an expiration date. We got to be thinking generationally when we talk about how to build our community.
But keep in mind this, though. The last thing I would want would be to go down to a school and be some kind of marquee figure with money coming more my way than the money going to the professors who have been working there day in and day out, year in and year out, decade in and decade out. They have been the ones who have been producing the Roland Martins, the Irene B. Wesses, the Clifton Wesses. My parents went to Fisk. That they're the ones who love the folk enough, and that they deserve both the focus and the monies and the resources. The adjunct professors who are unionizing, we ought not to respond by crushing them the way they're doing at Harvard and too many other places. No, they need to be empowered. So it's not just about this one individual or a few individuals. It's about the magnificent faculty that has been there all of these years who produce. See,
I got one for you.
And the Roland Martins and
I got one for you.
The black sisters yet coming out of Spelman.
I got one for you. So if they draw you as a part of it, you negotiate an increase for everybody else. See, Doc, I'm telling you. Look. Hey, let me tell you something right now. Look, I signed on to be a scholar in residence at Fisk. They got me doing 4 lectures. Fisk, I ain't coming there just to give 4 lectures.
Yes.
I got bigger plans. Y'all gonna know that when I get there. But they sent me the schedule. I ain't going just to give 4 lectures. I'm not gonna spend just 4 days. I got some other things I'm planning on doing. I'm just letting y'all know right now ahead of time, Fisk. So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying, Doc. So let's.
But they can even do that. They can do that without an older brother like me. They can say, look, Brother West, will you come to give a lecture? And as part of that, we're going to give a major investment in faculty to free them up time so that they're able to do more of the research, and at the same time put the students more and more center stage as the professors and the faculty are empowered financially, temporally, and so forth. In the end, that's much more important, man.
Yeah, I agree, but you gotta admit it's a different thing. That look, stars are stars, and let's just be real, Doc. I know you humble and all that, but let's just be. Come on,
Sly Stone said everybody is a star. Bootsy
no,
said,
that was a song. Even Sly Stone knew everybody ain't no star. Because everybody ain't everyday people.
Well, no, Slide understood everyday people meant everybody who come out of their mama's womb and gonna die, and the worm's gonna get them. That's everybody. I don't care how much money you got. I don't care what your status is. You an everyday person, and you a star, because in fact, stars actually are able to shine. Everybody can shine.
I agree 1,000%.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine.
But even Sly acted like a star.
Well, that's what partly got him in trouble. The geniuses have all kinds of different challenges. But you're right. But I'm with you though, brother. I'm with you. Don't get me wrong. We agreeing with the everyday people and the fact that certain visible people can cast the light in such a way, as long as the light is not on them. That's the crucial thing. You got to get beyond the narcissism and the egoism and say, who's going to serve the people? Who's going to sacrifice for the people? We got a major event coming up right now for the former H. Rap Brown, right there at the prison in Tucson, Arizona. He gave his everything. He sacrificed everything. he has been a star. You don't have to agree with him politically and ideologically to know his love for black people has been overwhelming. Where is the focus? Where is the spotlight? What goes into the making of Imam Amin? That's his name now. And then I've just written afterward for the book that's come out for him. But he's just one among many of the voices that deserve the spotlight, crucial spotlight. And he's a product of black colleges as well. Revolutionary that he is. Love that brother.
I do. Real quick, I got to get your thoughts. A couple of things. I have my guest from Oklahoma next. Please, y'all, let her know that I cannot get to her. Doc, I got to get a quick comment from you, but also breaking news, legendary rapper and DJ Biz Markie has died. I texted his wife, and he has passed away. And so I wanted to give that news to our folks real quick. Of course, there were reports saying he died about 3 weeks ago. I had to shut those down. He had not passed, but his wife did just text me back, and Biz Markie has indeed passed away. Doc, I need to get your thoughts on these crazed white folks in this country over critical race theory and how they're using it for the purpose of trying to take anything with diversity and tie it to that because they want to shut anything down dealing with race and diversity.
Brother, I believe we're all fallible human beings. No one of us have full possession of truth, capital T, but anytime free black people raise their voices, you're going to get white backlash. And Sister Nicole Hannah-Jones, she's a free black woman. She's a brilliant woman. The way she's been treated is despicable. And when she raises her voices along with the cacophony of voices of the 1619 Project, that it must be not only taken seriously, but is a crucial, central part of any conversation about what America is, how it came to be, and how it is now. And you can't talk about that story without talking about the centrality of white supremacy, the centrality of predatory capitalism, the centrality of the land that was stolen from indigenous people, the centrality of the ways in which the economy develops, and the ways in which they have tried to dominate, subordinate, control black peoples, black minds, black hearts, black souls, and black organizations. So that anytime you get free black folk raising the quest for truth, and the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak, you're going to get white backlash, and much of it white supremacist backlash. That's what's happening now. We shouldn't be surprised, brother. Never be surprised by evil. Never be paralyzed by despair. We got to keep on pushing the way Curtis Mayfield taught us.
Dr. Cornel West, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. You're welcome back anytime. I always enjoy our spirited conversations. And folks, they're just as animated and intense off air as they are on air.
Love you and your interlocutors and those wonderful voices. As you know, brother, anytime you call, I come running, my brother. I
appreciate it, Doc. Thanks a lot. Take care. And I'll see you soon at HBCU.
Oh, sounds good to me. We might have to get together at Fifth. We get together at Fifth for a little while.
You know, matter of fact, I will text you, and they got me doing a lecture, but what the heck? I can make it a conversation between me and Cornel West, and let's do it, because
we could do a dialogue alongside your lectures.
All right, let's do it. All right.
That'd be rich. Nashville.
Jubilee
Hall.
And then we can go to Sweats and eat afterwards.
But brother, I'm gonna have a cognac in the name of Jesus. You know that.
Well, I don't drink, so I'll be the one driving.
That's cool.
And I just gotta remind you real quick, y'all don't realize in Houston, planning the Million Man March, y'all. We went out to dinner. Y'all was the most unbelievable dinner at Denny's. So it's Dr. Cornel West. It was the Nation of Islam, the Lost Nation of Islam, NAACP, me, and y'all. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Driving back to the hotel. I got a Mazda Miata, top down. It's hot. Dr. West dressed just like this, afro blowing in the wind, and we have an amazing conversation in that Mazda Miata. So y'all trust me, this is always the case. Doc, I appreciate it.
Indeed. Love you, man. God bless your family.
Love you, my brother. You take care. All right, then.
Folks,
back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Racial injustice is a scourge on this nation, and the Black community has felt it for generations. We have an obligation to do something about it. Whether it's canceling student debt, increasing the minimum wage, or investing in Black-owned businesses, the Black community deserves so much better. I'm Nina Turner, and I'm running for Congress to do something about it.